Once the divorce with my ex-husband, Peter, was finalized, I began a new chapter of life with my daughter, Jessie. About 6 months later, something unexpected happened. It was my day off, and Jessie and I were enjoying a quiet morning at home when my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice unsettled as she told me that Peter and my ex-mother-in-law had suddenly shown up at my parents' house, uninvited and unannounced. Alarmed, I quickly got ready and hurried over. When I walked in, there they were, Peter and his mother, sitting stiffly on the living room sofa. Their expressions were unreadable, and I had no idea what could have prompted this sudden visit. "Why did you both show up here without warning?" I asked, unable to hide my confusion. Peter's response left me stunned. "I want you to pay back the money you owe me," he said coldly, his voice ringing with entitlement. Let me rewind a bit. My name is Grace. I'm 40 years old and work full-time in a corporate office. Peter and I had been married for 14 years, and our daughter, Jessie, is now in 8th grade. We used to be a happy family, or so I thought, building a warm and loving home together. Peter and I first met on a blind date. His friendly, cheerful personality immediately caught my attention, and we stayed close even after high school. Our relationship blossomed quickly, and he proposed after a year of dating. I was overjoyed when we got married, confident I had found my partner for life. Back then, I had a close-knit group of friends from high school. The four of us always celebrated each other's milestones, and when I announced my engagement, they were thrilled for me. They came to the wedding, making it a day filled with laughter and joy. Over time, one by one, each of my friends got married, too, and we joked about how our little group had turned into a circle of married women. Motherhood transformed our bond even more. As I had Jessie, my friends soon followed, and we became a group of mom friends, sharing the ups and downs of parenting. I felt fortunate to be experiencing life stages alongside them, and I believed our friendship would remain strong forever. Life as a wife, mother, and career woman was fulfilling but demanding. I worked in the planning and development department of a major company after college, where the fast-paced, challenging environment kept me on my toes. Though exhausting, the work was deeply rewarding. My friends often called me a workaholic, impressed at how I balanced both my career and home life. "Grace, you're like a superwoman," one of them joked. "You make it look like you have two bodies or something," but deep down, I often wished I had the boundless energy of a superhero. What kept me going was the love and support I found at home. "I'm home," I'd announce, stepping through the door after a long day. "Mommy, welcome home." Jessie, with her warm smile and small arms wrapping around me, had a way of making my fatigue melt away. Peter, too, played a crucial role in our family dynamic. After Jessie was born, he left his full-time job and began working part-time at a cafe so I could pursue my career. He managed the household and took care of Jessie, often greeting me with a delicious, home-cooked meal when I returned from work. "Welcome home, honey, dinner's ready," he'd say, offering a meal that not only filled my stomach but also warmed my heart. Peter's thoughtfulness and Jessie's love made our home a place of comfort and joy. Our evenings were full of small, cherished moments, like bath time with Jessie, where we shared stories about our day. Life felt harmonious, and I was proud of the balance I had achieved. Fueled by my family's support, I threw myself into work with even more passion, and soon, I was promoted. But with that promotion came more responsibilities and longer hours, which meant I often missed the little rituals that once brought us together. Jessie, growing older, understood my commitments, but something was beginning to change. Peter, too, had developed new interests. He became fascinated with coffee, experimenting with beans and brewing techniques. "I've been visiting different coffee shops and trying new beans," he'd tell me. His passion even led him to roast his own beans at home, sharing his creations with me and Jessie. Yet, as time went on, I failed to notice the growing distance between us. We were still under the same roof, but slowly, our once tightly knit family began to unravel. I first found out about it when Jessie approached me one evening, looking troubled. "What's wrong, sweetie? You said there was something you needed to talk about," I asked, sensing her unease. Well," Jessie hesitated, her voice uncertain. "The other day, I went to see a movie with some friends from school, and I saw Dad there, with another woman." I blinked, taken aback. "What?" "They weren't holding hands or anything, but they seemed close," Jessie explained, her eyes downcast. "And since last year, I've noticed some strange things. Dad talks on the phone a lot before you come home from work, and he always seems happy when he's looking at his phone. At first, I thought he was just texting you, Mom, but now, after seeing him, I'm starting to wonder if he's been talking to that woman. Jesse was in middle school, old enough to pick up on these things, but too young to bear the emotional weight alone. My heart sank as I realized the impact this must have had on her. The idea of Peter, who I believed was a devoted father, being unfaithful was devastating. I'm so sorry, Jessie, I said, pulling her into a hug. I didn't know this was making you feel so sad. I've been too focused on work, haven't I? She shook her head, trying to comfort me. No, Mom, I think it's really cool that you work so hard. Don't feel bad about that. Her kindness and understanding brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, honey, I said softly. I'll talk to your dad about this, and if it turns out he's having an affair, I might have to divorce him. Would you be okay with that? Jessie's eyes were resolute. I don't like the idea of Dad having an affair. Just knowing that and pretending everything's fine would make me feel worse. Her words broke my heart, but they also gave me strength. I knew I had to uncover the truth, not just for me but for Jessie, who had been so brave in sharing this burden. Without wasting any time, I hired a private investigator. The results came back quickly, and they confirmed my worst fears. Peter was having an affair, but the real blow was discovering the woman he was involved with. It was Nancy, one of my high school friends and a member of our mom group. I was more betrayed by Nancy's involvement than by Peter's infidelity. Nancy had been part of our circle since high school, and I had trusted her implicitly. She was a stay-at-home mom, married with a 5-year-old child, yet she had chosen to betray our friendship in the worst possible way. When the investigator handed me the photos, I was so shocked I couldn't move. I was grateful Jessie wasn't around to witness my reaction or see the evidence herself. I needed to stay composed, at least for her sake. After taking some time to collect myself, I decided to arrange a reunion with my mom friends under the guise of catching up. Nancy would never suspect that I knew her secret, especially since I was the one suggesting the gathering. In the 3 weeks leading up to our meetup, I hired a lawyer and began preparing for the divorce. I explained everything to Jessie, and we spent our days off looking at new apartments, planning for the future. When the day of the reunion arrived, we started off with casual conversation. One of my friends shared updates about her new job, and the rest of us exchanged stories. Nancy acted completely normal, as if she didn't have a care in the world. Life keeps changing for everyone, she remarked. I'm just a housewife, so every day feels the same. Another friend chimed in, well, you're lucky you don't have to work. Nancy, your husband takes care of everything. Nancy smiled, but there was a hint of dissatisfaction in her voice. Yes, but sometimes it does get boring. I took a deep breath, knowing this was my moment. Is that why you're having affairs with other people's husbands? I said, my voice steady but cutting. The room went silent. Our friends turned to me, shocked. What are you talking about, Grace? One of them asked. Nancy's face turned pale. Grace, what on earth are you saying? You must be mistaken, she stammered. I remained calm. Really? Then maybe everyone should take a look at this, I said, placing the evidence on the table. My friends crowded around, gasping in disbelief as they saw the photos. Nancy, how could you? One of them cried. Nancy's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. She had never expected me to confront her with solid proof. I was shocked, too, I said, my voice breaking. How could you do this to me, Nancy? Why would you betray me like this? Nancy sat there, speechless, as the reality of her actions came crashing down around her. Nancy finally realized she couldn't escape the situation. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice trembling. I ran into your husband at the cafe he works at. I didn't know he worked there, but after that, I started visiting regularly. My husband does provide for me, but after our marriage, he became so distant. I felt lonely. Tears streamed down her face, but despite her emotional plea, there was no justifying her actions. Having an affair, especially with a friend's husband, was inexcusable. I kept my voice steady, refusing to be swayed by her tears. I'm sorry to disrupt the group like this, I said to our other friends, but Nancy needs to know. I'm demanding alimony. I sent the certified notice to your house today, so your husband should have already received it. Nancy's eyes widened with horror. How could you do that? She stammered. I didn't flinch. It's far worse to betray a friend and jeopardize 2 families, I replied firmly. You need to face the consequences of your actions. Another friend chimed in, her voice cold. We can't trust you anymore, Nancy. With that, we all left the restaurant, leaving Nancy stunned and alone. With Nancy confronted, it was time to deal with Peter. I expected he'd heard from her, and when I arrived home, he stood in the doorway, visibly anxious. How could you do this? He demanded. Nancy just called me. You mean the affair? I shot back. You acted like a perfect husband, but behind my back, you were betraying me. Peter tried to defend Nancy, but she has a family too. Why would you expose her to her husband? I shook my head in disbelief. Affair partners really do think alike, don't they? You believe everything is fine as long as no one knows, but actions have consequences. And I'm done. I'm divorcing you, and I'm demanding both alimony and child support. Cornered with undeniable evidence, Peter had no choice but to agree to the divorce. He resisted paying, but when I hired a top-notch lawyer and threatened to take him to court, he caved. I sold our house and moved into a new apartment with Jesse, who became my rock throughout the ordeal. I won $30,000 in alimony from both Peter and Nancy, plus ongoing child support from Peter. 6 months later, Jesse and I had settled into our new life. One day, as we relaxed at home, I received a frantic call from my mother. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law had barged into my parents' house. Alarmed, I rushed over to find Peter and his mother sitting defiantly on my parents' sofa. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. Peter glared at me. "I want my money back. I paid $115,000 for our wedding, and since we're divorced, it's fraud. You need to pay me back." I scoffed. "You're absurd. We both paid for that wedding, and I've spent far more on our life together than you ever did." Peter's mother jumped in, echoing his demands. I could tell they were desperate. Peter had been fired from his job at the cafe, and they were clearly in financial trouble. My father, who had just arrived, was livid. "What's this nonsense?" he shouted. Peter repeated his claim, but my father was unimpressed. "You have no right to harass my daughter after everything you did. Get out." Peter fell to his knees, pleading, "Please, Grace, just lend me some money. Nancy's husband is demanding alimony too. I'm broke. Even $10,000 would help." I stayed firm. "No, I won't help you." Peter's mother tried to argue, but my father cut her off. "Wait here," he said, disappearing into another room. Moments later, he returned with an envelope. "Here's your money," he said, handing it to Peter. Peter and his mother left, clutching the envelope, but minutes later, they returned, banging furiously on the door. "This is Monopoly money," Peter shouted. I burst into laughter. "I figured if we had so much money, I'd share it with you." Peter erupted in anger, pounding on the door, but before things could escalate, the police arrived. Alerted by our neighbors, they arrested Peter and his mother for trespassing and causing a disturbance. Peter didn't get a cent. Instead, he paid a fine and had to cover the cost of the damaged door. His reputation was ruined when word of his behavior spread, and he remained jobless, relying on his parents to cover his debts. I also secured a restraining order, ensuring Jesse and I would be safe. Finally, we found peace. Watching my daughter flourish, I knew our new beginning was exactly what we needed.